So, hello. Many people asked me to do a short tutorial or breakdown how I managed um, my texture. So my stylized grass texture you see over here. Ah, damn. Okay, sorry. It always fits in. So yeah, my stylized grass texture. Sorry for messing up the UI. But yeah, maybe you can see it here. So the stylized grass texture. Um, yeah, over here. Perfect. So you see that all this how I managed small plants in it and how it is all randomized and do not look that randomized, but getting this shape and all this stylized looking texture style. I made this already on a thing, so on a short talk. But I will try to do it the same way. Start by show you how the generators work and how the subgraphs work, and then how I do the overall set to finalize it and getting the color and what I did to keep it as stylized as possible. First, I have some. How I work is I love to have my own generators here. This is where substance designer gets really powerful. You know that you can create your own math and your own tools to to customize these workflows and put even just single or often use graphs or graph parts into these subgraphs or these generators and use them as a tool to work out. For example, the stylized coloring part, I have my own. I made my own graph to solve this, and also here I use it pretty often here to get this stylized looking texture on it. Or yeah, I have a bunch of other graphs I don't use in this. I don't use in this graph because this is a pretty early graph I made. One of the first that really came out that there is some texture, or just there is some result. But yeah, now I'm starting to create my tool library. For example, preview tools or special ambient occlusion cavity tools that I can just plug in and do not have to redo all the graphs all the time. And using also some patterns, some generators to have some special patterns that the tile generator do not give me. So I start with the first generators. So it's my single grass generator. So this is, you see here, this is like how I made this grass plate. I can show you in my main graph. So what I can do with this grass plate. So I have here my grass generator. Oh no, that's already the grass shape generator. So I think it's the huge grass shape. I think this is the one. You see here I can have this my shape generator. I get a bunch of different shapes out of it. With only this all the same tool or the same node, and I get different shapes out of it. As you see, I can just adjust the width, and you see down here, I can adjust the width, the length of it, or the shape if it's going outwards or inwards, and just the size, the height, and how many cuts I have, how I want to bend it, left or right, and just giving it a wave, or it's positive or negative wave. So this is what this grass pad is all about. So I could tweak this graph for like forever, to just playing around with the values. So I get different shapes here. This is also my grass shape map. That's also a generator that just makes that creates this shape like I want to have it. But first, let's start with the single grass. I first started with a shape. I could have used a different math for it, but let me just detach it so that you see what I've done. Yeah, I started with gradients. I don't know, this was kind of old school because I do not realize that I have a 180 degree and I can put it down there and I have the same result. But I used the histogram scan, and you see the position. I parameterized the position of the histogram scan, so I used this gradient to work out the height and the width. So this is for my width, the rounded gradient. It's nearly the same math behind it. You can look at it. It's like only get float with the width. So it's pretty easy and straightforward to generate this thing. But when you see, I double click in the middle. By the way, it's you open the graph, the options from the graph. I don't know if you know it, but you have different options. So yeah, sorry that I go just from one side to another, but this is a good example to show what you can do here. If you have a generator for something small, like the Clover Generator here, I fixed this for some reason to 124, but I could have relative to parent and just reduce the size by 4 times, because when I use it in my parent graph, for example, I think I used it here, yes, the Clover Generator, and he generates automatically a size that fits. The random tile generator, I use it as relative to parent, so it's going to 124 because my graph is, I think, 124. But first I used a much smaller image, so I don't have this much calculation time if I would increase it. So you see the calculation time gets just far away. But now I have 256 because I set this one to a fourth of the parent graph, and the parent graph in this case is my busty grass texture. So let's go forward. So you have this per node, and you can have it per graph, these settings. It's pretty useful. And then, yeah, let's go back to the grass generator. You see here I have one time the parent, but I don't know, it's okay. So this is what to start off with the grass shape. It's a simple box, and you can, when I go into the box, you see here, double click into the empty space to get to my node setup, or just call it the graph layout here. I can give a description, a category. The category is cool to have. Like when you see here, I have my slope functions. I need to rename it because slope is my personal project. But I use these tools in nearly every project I have. You can set a filter. Let me just, how I do open the filter setting. Here. You see, I have just delete the folder 3 and 4. So I have these nice filter settings. I can set a filter of just only show graphs. You can have bitmaps, vector graphs, whatever. He takes it out of your library. Then you can have the categories, and you say the category is equal to tool graphs. So when I go into one tool graph here, what I have, I just put it here in, and the tool graph have, I'll just go to the reference, open, yeah, you see here, opens my previous tools SBS, and when you see here, this is what it does. So it is my advanced 2D grayscale transform. And you see here I have a category called tool graphs. This category just is to separate it or make several filters to get your graphs organized. Just giving it a name. Yeah, I'm the author, and yeah, my URL. And I could just add another thing. So for example, tags, you can also use it. The tag is equal to, or yeah, does not contain, contains. This is like, you can have parts of it. But this is more or less everything. So let me close the preview tool that was not part of it, part of the tutorial. But let's go into my graphs generator. I hope this shows a bit what this all these features could do. All these small, simple graphs that do a lot of things. But first, I started with this box. Go from the box to Directional Warp to get the shape. You see, I warp it to the side. With simply this, I generated something like top to bottom side gradient, or just to have something like a straight blur from bottom to top to make it bending only this direction. I hope you see my mouse, but it's just bending it only on the top, not on the side, and just detach the sides to make it bend in a just not straight way. Just level it a bit out. This is, for example, you see here, this is red. I parameterized this middle point, and you see I cannot move it, but if I check it out what graph this is, I think is, let me go into, this is also a good thing to go in onto values, and you get this, the values, so the points, you see here, this is one value. All these values you can access via the values and type numbers in, and you also have the ability to parameterize it. For example, the levels in mid, that's this point here, and I go over and set it's my edge shape. So okay, I go back and say, okay, the edge shape, that's like how it's shaped. It's this one, the edge shape. When I move it, you see how it just moving. It's getting tighter or just less tight. That's just something to control it. You see here, that is like the first one, and I have a second one into the other direction. There you see I already have the spikes in. I just the spikes is another thing, so I will add this later on. First, just we have these two things, and we just added them as a multiply. We could use min or max, but use multiply is the safest way to go, because the black parts are black, the white parts are white. Here, just bend it again to get a non. So this is really uniform. So on both sides, it's copy, and then I get an additional blend, an additional directional warp to get a rounded shape with this one. So on the top it gets more bended than on the bottom. The same as I use here. I think it just, no, it is just fixed. Okay, here I have just where I inverted it after I could rotate it. It's just a stupid idea why I did this. I don't know. Okay, and an additional thing, when you want to delete a node out of a hierarchy, but do not destroy the hierarchy or the connection, so you can press backspace and it's just deleted, but it keeps the connection. You see, the result is the same as it was before, without changing anything. And I go here. Wait is this texture denote? It look like I just make it smaller. Yeah, I just make it a bit smaller. And this is, what is this Directional Warp exactly doing? I think this is one of my shape modifications I did on the single leaf, and then I get my outputs. Like I have a mask to mask it out and a height map. I don't know if I just still need the height map, the mask. I don't know. I think there is a way around, but this is the basic idea. And then I added these cuts in it, and just these cuts are simply just I use this one, these pyramid, or what it is. Yeah, it's pyramid, but it's turned in 45 degrees, and just used a tile generator. It's pretty useful tile generator, but the Y numbers are still 1, and I offsetted them so that I get different height. So you see the position. No, this was the wrong. Looking for the position offset. I didn't see it yet, but there is a position offset, and to keep them aligned to the top. And then here I level them up so that I get straight cuts and cutted them in. It's important because I just want to have always perfect edges. So I could use this, add something like here, I don't know what it's called, but getting rid of these steps here. It's just a blur high quality. Blur high quality grayscale, just turn up the grayscale, just keep it a bit lower, and then just type in a levels node, and we just getting the contrast pretty high. So we get rid of, you see, we have nearly perfect edges then here on the stairs. Oh, the stairs are still there. Okay, we need to, yeah, you see I smooth the stairs out, but I also get some kind of soft edges here. That's not exactly what I want to have, but maybe I can do it with the directional warp, directional blur, to just yeah, I think the directional blur here, I could say, okay, I want to have it blurred only in this direction here. You already see that it's blurring out the edges, getting into the levels node, and I have just nice anti-aliased edges. Yeah, there's still there is some edge over there. Okay. Okay, now it's not working. Anyways, just bring it in, and you see I have these cuts here, and these cuts just straighten over and over again. I have things to just solve this problem. But anyways, I have now just these cuts in it. And now moving forward to the next step. It's my Clover generator. It is clear. It's because it's German. Because I'm German. Clover. Yeah. No. Okay. Just. Anyways, it's the Clover. So the Clover. Or I just go to this pattern later. The circle grass. I just go to this now. Because it's a generator. So the others are also generators, but they are more complex. What I did here is I started with my grass blade I generated over there. Used some really tight versions of it, and one simple spike here. Set them, just scale them a bit up and set them up. So it's important that the pivot, the center of the image is in the middle of the image, because I could use it some other ways, but then I have some straight rotations. When it's rotating all around. Let's just duplicate this one and make this height 200 so I get the center. And when I now rotate it, you see here, when I now rotate it, it rotates around the center, so the pivot is in the middle of it. So that's cool for the circular splatter, because when I rotate it, you see I rotate not the whole image, I rotate it from the base, and it's always looking like I'm rotating it from the base. Yeah, just making two cylindrical splatters with some kind of bit of a different settings. I don't know if I parameterize some of them. I could, but I thought it is okay if I just changing the random seed, so I get totally different results by only changing the random seed. That was quite enough for me. Yeah, I get this with the gradients and stuff, and have some kind of rounded thing here, some rounded grass pieces, and then I just go over here and use the spike or thorn to push in the middle of my circle, push it in, and then I get some kind of a rounded out throw, or just that they go to the edge, they just bending out. I can try to set this as a height map, go into default, go into the tessellation version, geometry, high res, edit default, edit material, and when I just increase the scale, just making the tessellation factor a bit higher, you see that it's going, that was too high, it's just lagging. Okay, you see that they're rounding. They're not rounding. Okay, just maybe the thorn is the wrong thing to do it. Whatever I'm doing here. Here it's always looking the same. Good, that was a mistake. I thought this thorn is like a thorn and pushing in the middle set. Maybe it's because of the gradient we already have in our thing here. And let's try out the mask here. And no, it's not working. Now you see it. You see now that it's pushing it in on this angle. So the value was too low to show that. So yeah, you see it's a bit rounded now. Need to tweak these values and all this kind of stuff to get perfect results. But it was like, it feels like ages when I've done this. Okay, so this was the grass blade generator. Let's go over and start with the huge grass shape. That was one thing. That was the first thing when I started with FX maps. So an FX map is a splatter where you can define the rules how to splat your texture or how to splat the image. So I set it in multiple grass generators. I used this level to make this one grass here a bit outstanding. You see the values are different. When I open up here this histogram scan, and this I don't see any values here. That's kind of strange. I don't know why it's do not return anything or any histogram, but it should. Good. Anyways, let's go. I just made several things with different settings to get some kind of cool looking grass shapes. Put them in my grass of X shape map. Let's go into the grass of X shape map. That's the first FX map I've created. Not the first in my life, but the first for this graph. Let's go and open the reference. This is the shape map here. Our basic setup to control this the FX map with variable inputs. So that what I made here is I have 10 inputs, and all these inputs have an input images visible. If you see if it's greater than 1, then show this image greater than 2, and so on until greater than 9. And I use this for example. If I go into the huge grass shape again, I can select the image count I want to use. The image count is, again, just simply to have this FX map. It's a basic FX map input setup I've made to just have multiple inputs, but not showing all of these. Let's go into the FX map. I wanted to go. So that's a basic setup. I have an iterate node. This means this defines, so you have 5 iterations, and the iterations means 1 time through it, 2 times through it, 4, 5, and so on. And it goes to this, and this quadrant node sets the image into 4 quadrants. So there's first, second, third, fourth, and it does different things with it. So this is the basic thing. I have for all of these things where you see size, rotation, and the image index. I have set up these graphs. Later on, I will show you how to set up them not to I have to switch all the time between these graphs. I first show you how it works in general. So you have this pattern input offset and stuff like that, and you can set it up. Usually it looks like, let's create an FX map. So just go into the FX map, edit FX map. You see the quadrant node is the first he opens up, so he do not iterate through it. He goes straight into the quadrant node just one time. And this is the output for each quadrant node. For each quadrant, like this is the first, so you can put, like, you can duplicate it and say, okay, I want to have it all into this, all 4 layers into the other quadrants, and now we have one in this quadrant. We have the same quadrant like in this, but it's like 4 by 4 times now. But let's go first with the first quadrant node. And you see you have a luminosity value. It's an RGB value. It depends on the input. So you can have, like, when I do a grayscale input here, and then I go into the FX map, I have only the luminosity value of the one channel that it's there. It's the grayscale. It depends on your input. how this is set up, the color and luminosity value. Let's go, and we have a pattern selected. We can have different patterns, like we choose the disk, and you see we have one disk for the whole thing. Yeah, but we can also, and we have the input image index if we use the input image, and set the input image index if we have it's only the background, so we put one in the input, and then we can go and say input image 0. But first let's go with the disk, and then I can show you what this does. So we have the branch offset. It's like the complete thing is offsetted. Second thing is also X and Y offset. Luminosity is simple, just how bright it is. Pattern offset is the offset of one quadrant area. Pattern size. We have the pattern size. We have the rotation. You just don't see it because it's a disk. But if we use a square, you have this offset, and you can have pattern variation. Whatever this does. Blending modes, add, max, multiply. And random iterate random. It's like whatever, I don't know yet. I just click it on it and look what happened. But this is a basic FX map without anything. Let's go over to where it was. There it was. No, just here. It was so the FX map. Just edit FX map or press Control E. So you see the iterate node, and there I parameterized some of these settings. For example, the pattern offset. It's like how the spread. I used the spread image and just randomized it. So it's randomized, makes already just random it between 0 and the value, the input. So I used this and divided it by the value, by the spread value +1, and then subtracted it so that it's always going from the center to right and left if I spread it out. And then I outputted it, but only in the x-axis, because the y is always 0, to keep it like this, to keep it horizontally, not vertically randomizing. So that's the first. Let's go to the second one. That's the pattern size. I just have a float, a simple float, a second float, just divided it by 2 and edited just 2 random nodes from the 0.3, so it's randomizing between 0.3 and 0. But I did it 2 times, and each one of these have a different, let's call it the random seed. So this is the first random seed. If I put both into the same input, so they will both be the same. So, but if I have 2 different random nodes, he gets me 2 random values for x and y. It depends how you want to have it. If you want to scale it uniform, you put it 1 into both. If you don't want to have it uniform, just use 2 random nodes. Okay, that was the size. Let's go over to the rotation. It's just the same setup. The rotation is setting by just the sinus of the angle. So 1 is no, it's not by the angle. I think it's, I don't know if it's p multiplied by p or something else, because it's the rotation is from 1 to 0, from 0 to 1. It's 1 rotation. It's important to know if you have some transformation nodes, want to make some your own transformation nodes or some special effects with rotations. Keep that in mind. It's always a simple float what you output for the rotation. So I simply wanted to have some slightly randomized value here in the rotation. I set it all by heart to put this all hearted so that they all fixed in it, because I just developed this graph on the fly. So I could just giving him a variable, expose it, and just tweak it later on. But I just get rid of it and just put it in hard numbers, and that was all. So that's my image input. So the image inputs from 0 to 1. So I used, because it's an int, I added 1 so that he always just clamps it right, because when the image input is 0 or 0. Or just if you have here and it's like converted to a float and it's do not fit, I just had to add 1 to it. Then because of the random node, I don't know why I get the random node. I remember I had to add 1 to the random node, because when it goes from 0 to 1, you get some strange, or when you have just only the last images shown up pretty not that often. That's because of the random. I could add after a random 0.5 that should add the same effect. If I go here and just add a float, just press space is like your shortcut to create a node. If you go click on the node here, press space and say, no, that's not right, I want to put it in. But if I just want to add a node, just add just a float 0.5. I want to add 0.5 to it, so it's always getting over the clamp value of the float to integer, because I need to have an integer, but the randomized value only works with floats. So that's why I had to do it. Okay, let's continue with the FX map. I think we are gone. We're done with the basic FX map of this horizontal grass shape. Here you see I can change the image count, and I have less images then, and I get more and more, but they're not filled in, so there is no image. Okay, we had made this this simple grass shape here, but this wasn't enough for me because it's too straight. I added a gradient here to slope blur the grayscale suit to make it more uniform here on the bottom side. That was to get rid of these hard edges on the bottom side. Yeah, it's so you don't see it, but to get rid of this bottom line. Most of the time I just add a normal layer to review my lighting setting. Here you see how it just works on the lighting. I need to just edit and set the emissive value, exposure. Okay, I need to just set it by whatever, 50, so that you can review your shape, your modeling tools. And you see I have the slope blur is simply to just unify the grass on the bottom a bit. Yeah, so let's show it up. So I made a bit more of it, but let's add a default edit. I need to just reduce the scale. You see that's flattening it out here. If I put it directly in, you have more or less hard edges. Anyways, I don't know why I did this in the end. Do not look that different. But here in the end you see I have some kind of a band in it. Just the transformation to denotes here and here is just to offset the position to work against the directional warp, because the directional warp puts only always parts of the image into one direction. So it's not mathematically correct here. But you see, I move it a bit to the left, and then I just make this this blur, this directional warp. On the top, the same. So you move it a bit to the right, and just make a directional warp. Here I blend these two together with a simple cut here, so separate right and left to cut this. That's not the cleanest way to do it, but at this time when I started to make it, this was the way to go for me. Yeah, directional warp again. This is, you see, this like black to white to black, to just push the mids or the mid area a bit to the top or to the bottom. See, I just make 90 degrees so that I push it to the top or to the bottom, so that I have some bending in between. Okay, slope blur grayscale at least to get rid of the edges on the bottom again. And then I output my height map. Okay, that was the first one. The second one is my grass FX map. That's a huge one, you see it already. I made two FX map. I think I could have done it with no, the second FX map is just two times an FX map with the same rules, but one have a randomized value to create a mask split to separate to make a color variance of the grass. I get outputted. Yeah, basic control the same like before my map, but I get the mask what masks several grass patterns out. So, and I get here into my FX map. I think it's enough to show you the first one because it's pretty complicated, and I show you how I made it. So first I iterated. The iterations I made it as parameterized so that I can later control how much grass patches are actually on the plane. And then I just go 2 times to have more grass without the crazy calculation. So and then I go first, I get, you see, when I go into the pattern offset, you see I only return a variable it's called pos. It's my position. And then I go back to the FX map and just I do this for all this time. Image index, I return only the image index value. That's an internal variable I use for it. Because I just simply calculate everything in the color and luminosity, everything. So you see it goes from the bottom to the top up, or just I don't know how exactly this node works, but it seems like he goes from bottom left to the right. So he goes here, just waits until, or just from the top to the bottom. He waits, calculates it, just goes down, just calculates it, goes, just calculates until he gets the luminosity just back into the output graph. So let's start with the luminosity. The luminosity is like how bright or how high, because it's in height map, how high the grass patches go. So I divide by 3. Oh no, I divide 3 by this value. Okay, I just made the size, and I only want to have the x value of this size, so I swizzle it. Adding this with the pattern random scale, and then I just edit it and make it absolute, so that I do not get some negatives if I have negative scalings. I want to return a positive value every time. Just 3 divided by this value, multiply it with the already just in it, randomize it, add it with the float, again 0.2 to get not totally black grasses, but getting some lighters and some darker grasses. Okay, just go to the next step, the size. That's our random scale and the scale. So my scale is my fixed scale of the grass patch itself. The random scale is there where it's going random. You see, I just randomized the size, multiplied by 0.5 and subtracted, so I get always a middle scale. So already a negative scale could be no. It just anyways. Just think about it. It's hard to just go through my graph I did just a month ago and then just try to find out how I made it. But yeah, just edit this with my pattern scale, make it to vector 2. Because I make it uniform scaling, I just put in both the same value, and just set a variable, and I call it size and go into it, and now it's gone. It's like there is no important thing. Just keep output it into the size, and then go through the sequence. The sequence node is the node I described where you put in. He always takes the bottom value and the top value he throws away or something. I don't know, or waits until the top there is an input from the top value, and then he passes through the bottom value. It's a cool thing for something like this. I don't know if there's any other case to use it. If there is, drop me an email. Okay, just going further, we have the image index. It's the same calculation like before. Yeah, again, this one I could put this away just using this. Just put a float. I think that's a more clean way to do it after the random. This way is, I think it's more clean to do it. Because it's mathematically more correct to do it this way. Again, I set a variable, my image index, and just read it out later on. Okay, path through. Next step, the rotation. This is the kind where it gets interesting. But first, let me go to the position thing. The position is just randomized over a position over this whole thing, so I splatter them somewhere. That's no matter. I splatter it over the whole texture. It's a random position. When you go here and I say, yeah, view outputs in 3, you see I splattered them just over it and over it. It's no important thing that what it's doing here. It's like splattering over it. The position is random, totally random. There is no rule behind it. When I go into the quadrant node again, just into my node here, you see it's totally random. It's like from 0 random and from 0.5 to random, so it's completely over the whole texture. So I splattered it in his area here in 0.5, and again just in everything. So going further with the rotation, there I used the position I wrote here into the position thing, read it out and put it in, and want to have the X position and the Y position. I separate the position so I have, like here, like this point is rotated like this, and this point is like to have these bows. I use the position. We'll see later on what it's doing. I have pattern random rotation. This gives me a bit of randomness so that not everything is straight aligned. It's also a parameterized thing I can just later set up on the on the node who represents the graph. You see a random just between 0 and the value I gave, the random value. Adding this to the value. This is my wave size, so how often just these waves are coming or just going through it. How often these waves are. It's simple size, it's simple float, you see. Then this is what I multiplied with it, and there is going on the magic. I add this two together, so I get, so when on this point I want to have a rotation that is like 0 degree, but if I go to the right I want to have 90 degree. But if I go from this point to the top, I want to have also 90 degree, want to still have 0 degree or 90 degree or some whatever. It's still to keep a rounded edge. Afterwards, I make a modulo so that I cut it like it makes a half rotation, and then like here you see 0.5. It's like a quarter rotation. I think it's a quad because it's 2 multiplied by p for a rotation later on, and that's the output value. But I use this one and say, okay, you always, if it's just the rotation is done, half rotation is done, just start a new rotation to get this waves still working. This is the modulo, and I set the pattern rotation so that I can later adjust if it's 90 or just the base rotation I start rotating from, depending on the position. I can show it later on the main graph how this works. I add these two together and set this to my rotation. Yeah, this is basically how the graph works. It's a lot of stuff. So I think I don't know if I pictured it right, but if you have any questions, I can make some detailed pictures from all of these sections. Just drop me an email if you're interested in the details, or just some reminding images or something to help you to improve your substance skills. Yeah, the height map to mask. This is something I came later to. This is some working graph. I know it's not perfect. I really did a better graph later on. It's in my toolbox. This was the first approach to mix two height maps and get out the mask that works. How much of the one or the other is blended. How much of the first or the second height map is visible. And mix them both together by certain rules I define. Then we have the colorist, the Stylist Coloring node. That's simply, I have 3 inputs. You see that's the edge color, the height color, and the base color. And I have as well the height map. I go through, I made a normal map for, I think this is, yeah, it is for the height color to blending the base color and the edge color. So I make a normal, creating a curvature map out of it, blur it a bit, level it out so that I get a more contrast value, and edit it both together. The next is the high and low color. I simply used my height map to mix them. So and they're both always copy, because I used the alpha value here to mix them both together. It's like a lerp, or it is a lerp between color 1 and 2 by the third value per pixel. And then I mix both together again with the height map, so that only the high parts get the edge. And then I output the color. That's basically all the graph. So let's go into the coloring graph. You see here my beautiful stylized grass picture texture. Let's start with my grass pattern, you see it's only a grayscale, and I can just show you a bit what all the values I showed you doing. So I really made these all visible in the main graph, especially not the image inputs. Yeah, I have the image inputs here. See, I can have more, and I just simply I have used my grass shape for it. Let's start. I have the iterations. I can say how many grass patches are on the image itself. This is why I just parameterized the input images, the iterations. Input images is like how many inputs I want to have, and then I have these lower these sub objects. Let me first show you how that works. I just went through it too fast, and I already want to show you the mask thing over here. I'm sorry, I just go through it too fast. Let's go into this. It's it's still in the luminosity thing, but I added one thing. Where do I edit it? I think I added this. What? Okay. There should something else. Okay, I do not go into the edit FX map again, just using here, okay, somehow, anyways, it's just masking several leaves out. Okay, just going back into Basti's graph. Yeah, Basti is my colleague who challenged me to do a nice hand-painted graph in less time he needed to paint something like this by hand. He's a great artist, by the way. Okay, let's start with I wanted to show you what you can do. Yep, these subgraphs. I want to show you how to set up these graphs. You see, I have double-clicked here in the empty space. I get my graph set up. Here I have the iterations and stuff like that, but I have always, you see, a rotation and then a straight line, and then the pattern. It's simply type in a group and you get the result. I always use labels to just having like a space between it, or make it more clean, or adding additional information to the property. Yeah, that's like because my identifier always have some strange names, and I want to have it labeled as wave horizontal, but it's my pattern wave on the X side on the X axis. Okay, this is how it works. We have size and we have the rotation. Let's go into my subgraphs, into the main texture. Yeah, I did this, and just rotation. You see, I have my pattern rotation. You see, I can rotate the whole patterns, and you see always see these bows, these waves. I can increase the waves. Yeah, let's go into remove the random pattern rotation. Now you see we have perfect straight rotated things here. How they work, you see here, and I can say how many waves I want to have, a horizontal or vertical. We can go into the size and say, okay, the pattern size, increase the pattern size, decrease the pattern size to a certain level. Just make 300 here. 300 is not enough. 3000. And you see now it's like we have some bandings here, and it's quite calculating relatively fast for the numbers of iterations. It just reduced the waves horizontal. You see that only going this way. and we have straight lines, and you see that's like the waves, where the waves going. It's quite a cool graph to play around with. I see the result is always, yeah, just adding some random rotation. Not that much, just some really smooth random rotation. Okay, yeah, let's go a bit more of this pattern size, just reduce the amount of grass patches. This is the mask. The mask output is, when I double click here, one of these, you see I mask some grass patches out. That's for later on coloring, pretty important. This is the first one. I just level it up to get some kind of perfect black to white, because I don't want to do anything with this height map later on to add some noise or something. This is my grass. This is my height map. It's done. Okay, let's go to the Clover. I wanted to show you how I made the Clover, last one, because the Clover is the additional aspect on it to bring some more of a more natural feeling to it, especially so to do not show that this uniform output. If I just go straight from here straight to grass patch, it looks kind of boring. If I add more of these Clover elements, it gets more pleasing to me. So okay, let's go to the Clovers. It's like a simple height map here. There's my Clover generator. You see that's the output. First I start with a simple disk. Make it smaller just to have some kind of two things, just a heart, just on a triangle. Yeah, set the size, just put it in so that I get some kind of a heart shape. Just blur it a bit. Texture G, make a smaller version of it, blur it again, and then that we get a cut in it. Then we have a simple gradient from the ground to the top, multiplied over it. This is some simple thing to get a bit of a shape, a different shape, not a perfect uniform heart shape. I'll transform it into the middle. Make a circular splatter. I always keep this at max, because when it's add and sub, you get these highlights in the middle. Just, you don't want to have it. It's max is better. Again, the thorn in the middle. Just show you again what this doing. This does material added default. The scale. I do not do anything. What is wrong? Because I do not output it as my height map. Just view in 3D, just at my height. Then you see I got some kind of, just make it even darker in the middle. Scale 5. It's not the perfect way, but it does the job. Okay, that's the Clover, how it works. So the circular splatters, cool thing, because you splatter it in circles. You can have as much as you want to have splattered in a circle. Maybe it's good to use later on for some cylindrical pattern. Yeah, that's my Clover. Whoa. Okay, added default, added, just reduce this thing and looks ugly. Okay, continue with the grass basic color. I use the height map. Just, I don't know why I level it up 2 times or 3 times. Okay, that's my. This looks a bit weird because I subtract the main from the mask, or I subtract the mask from the main to get this shape. But this is looking pretty weird, but he collects what is overlaying each other and where to put one color or the other color. I have more. This is the first stylized color, the first blend, simply with the height map. Simply with this one, just bring them both together. And the stylized coloring is my edge color, is this one, and my height color is this one. And this is my uniform color, this is my base color. Blend these two together. Put them up here. Just make the same for the clover. I have some. There I have only simple colors without any noise or something. Just mix them both together by the mask I get out of the tile random, or just I make a mix mask. Okay, this is my mix mask. I just mixed the height map and the other map together and get out a mask I used later on to blend these two together. Yeah, the mix mask I already described how it works, or not in detail, but I have the foreground and the background. The background is the base. Level it to two different. What? Okay. I just blend these by max lighten. I really don't know what I've done here, and I'm pretty sure it is wrong. It was wrong. I had some issues in it, and I just made another graph to solve this problem. When I go into Basti's texture, you're having some strange colorings here, like this. That looks kind of ugly, or here you have some overlappings. That's not looking good, so I threw this one away and just change it. And then I add the circular grass later on. It's like a more lighted version, but it's always using my stylized grass coloring, again with my mask mixing to look what is overlaying each other. And I add some kind of an ambient occlusion effect to it. Yeah, this is like the same way, but you see here it's 124. I go into my cylindrical grass, and it's 124. It's absolute. I wanted to have it relative to parent and reduce the size by 4 times. Going back into my graph, and you see when I go to my circular grass, it's now 256. That's a good thing to just reduce the rendering or calculation time of your graph. Again, tiled random. It's the same procedure like for the clover, more like having some rounded grass patches to break out the shapes. Yeah, mix this all together with the blend node, with the mask of the height map mix. And then I go into the highlights. The highlight is something I could have done in a separate graph. But yeah, I go with normal map just to generate these curvature map. There's a grayscale conversion to get some kind of a light direction to it. Because when you have this normal map, you see the green channel, or just show only the green. So only the green channel, you have some kind of a light direction. That's normal mapping. It's like everything what's red is showing it's arranged to the bottom, and everything what's black or not green is just showing up to the top. It's a normal map, and you can use that as for your light informations. I use that. I just wanted to have a bit of a red to get. Yeah, I could go with just simply green. You could only go with red. Red is from left to right. It's your choice what you want to have. Yeah, just invert it that I get the top edges. Just blur it a bit. I could use a blur high quality. I think in my opinion the result is much better, even if you not use high quality. To soften it out a bit. So I just soften it out, and I get a levels node. Let's go back and enable the other two, so that's grayscale. To make it bright, giving it just bring it more like this. I don't want to have too bright spots on it. And then later on I use this, mix this with my curvature map. I get some kind of a soft lighted effect. Blend this with the height map, so that only the high parts get lighted. I could put it in the other one so that you see everything gets lighted, but I only want to have the high parts lighted to still keep the lower parts dark. Yeah, mix this with the gradient out of the curvature smooth, but I think I mix it with an overlay to get this reddish kind of feeling to it. I could just add linear dot to have some highlights, subtract it, multiply it, whatever. Add sub do not look that bad, but it's kind of the wrong effect to me. Yeah, overlay gets a smooth effect, and that's basically how this thing works. I hope you learned something. I hope I do not get too far through it. If you have any comments also to my presentation style, it was a bit confusing because I just jumped from one graph to another. If you have any questions, drop me a mail or just write me somewhere. I think all communication channels are open to you to use. Yeah, that was my breakdown of this graph. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.